restorative mutuality is, of course, an offshoot of mutuality in general. And mutuality in general in our work is showing up as in your true and total nature and making room for the other to do the same. But for most of us, it is a workout. Coming into this work, from the larger culture, to actually allow ourselves to show up in our true and total nature, to reveal our vulnerabilities, to be open, as you say. And it is, I think that's the shortcut math that a lot of people come to, is like the safest place is just to not really go there at all, right? To not enter into intimate relationships. There's a shorthand I use with my students, my college students, intimacy equals risk. Right? In order for us to really be intimate with each other, we have to be willing to risk ourselves, to risk our vulnerability. And this is where the harm piece can come in, right? Because one person's vulnerability is another person's trigger.
Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah. And if you're in an intimate relationship, romantic relationship, you experience this, but even just as a member of a family, growing up, most of us experience that with some regularity in our families of origin growing up, right? Is it safe to reveal myself? Is it safe for me to be vulnerable? And for many of us, maybe we haven't really had good models of healthy communication, of successful communication, where we've lived in families where the truth wasn't told, or where vulnerability wasn't spoken, or where listening wasn't practiced. Any number of aspects of that you could look at. And then we come into this work and you show up at a sitting, and the idea is to speak authentically whatever's arising in the moment. It's like, okay, we have to find our way to actually successfully speaking what it is we are feeling. And this was my experience as a practitioner in this work, as a human being, as a person in intimate relationships, was never telling the truth about how I felt. Never telling the truth about how I felt. So I had to learn that. And so we have to start someplace, which is, healing the wounds in our own hearts. Right? We have to heal our own woundedness, our own sense of disenfranchisement, othering, and so on. It's hard because we're convinced, many of us, that we're right. Channeling a lot of other teachers tonight, but something Rod Taylor said to me many years ago was, when you keep bumping your head against the same thing over and over again, it's the core wound trying to get your attention, right? The core wound wellness paradox, that sense that there's somehow something that's not right with the world, or something that's not right with us. And so something like shame can be really kind of deeply in our DNA as an individual, or something from the way we were raised. We can feel that can get activated. And that can be also restorative, as part of what you offer to a person is, when I feel this and I lean into this, how this has landed for you, this brings up a certain amount of shame for me. And, you can share your vulnerability with that if you feel comfortable doing it, but there's no requirement that you do that, right? But for a lot of us, that's kind of where relational mutuality or restorative mutuality is different from kind of regular being with somebody, is this feeling that you don't have to feel like, oh, I've done something wrong. It's not the same as kind of giving yourself carte blanche, but your intentions were good, right? You didn't mean to cause harm to this person, but that's what's happened. And so you can recognize from that place of compassion that that's what's unfolded, and offer your apology from there. So that's the greater possibility of restorative mutuality, is not just to give back and make amends, but to deepen in the relationship with the other person. If you think about the example from the Ho'oponopono, that's the point, right? The point is to return to a sense of collectivity rather than separation. So we say, okay, I'm not holding on to the grudge. I'm not holding on to the fault. I'm holding on to the relationship. That's kind of what Maria was saying. When the stakes are so high to an extent, it's like, it's not worth sacrificing the relationship over, even though you might find that you continue to sort of cycle through. It's not like every time you do restorative mutuality, it's like, okay, that's done. That issue's not going to come up again. That hurt's not going to happen again, right? It's just ongoing. It's ongoing. That's what we call it, a practice, you might say, right? Because it doesn't stay done. It doesn't stay done. Not even for us. By us, I mean like teachers in this work. I mean, some of whom have been teachers for a very long time. They've been in their realization for a very long time. As human beings, we are all still capable of hurting and causing hurt by what we do and say, right? Because it's the nature of the beast. So it's a fine line to walk, maintaining your own boundary, your own sense of yourself, and also, being open to the other as a vulnerable, emerging being. It's arising in the moment as that. When we come into mutuality with each other, we have this opportunity to actually be met, to meet person to person, soul to soul, divinely human being to divinely human being. And we have to learn how to do that, the best way to do that, recognizing that essentially we're not separate. We're just different types of trees growing out of the same root system.